Vision without action is merely a daydream. Action without vision is a nightmare. Japanese proverb. Amidst the relentless hustle of life, there are those who dedicate the prime of their youth to weaving magnificent visions of tomorrow, of a life they deeply yearn for. They paint a radiant self-portrait, akin to a dreamer standing on the shore, gazing at a distant sail, yet having never once touched the grain of wood to forge a vessel of their own. As the years slip by, no matter how dazzling the dream may be, if it is not nurtured by the sweat of reality, it will soon wither into a belated regret, leaving behind nothing but the solitary sigh of self-consolation. If only I had started back then. Yet, at the opposite extreme, blind busyness harbors its own invisible snares. Some entangle themselves in an inescapable whirlwind, laboring relentlessly from dawn till dusk, chasing one target after another, while forgetting to question their own true direction. Their lives resemble a vessel driven by a roaring engine, yet lacking a guiding rudder. That ship cleaves through the waves at an astonishing velocity, expending immense resources, only to endlessly spiral across a boundless, uncharted ocean. Busyness conjures the illusion of progress, but in truth, it is nothing more than aimless motion. That is why many touch the heights of fame and fortune only to forsake their health. They secure status, but witness their families fracture, achieve accolades, yet find their souls hollow. They do not collapse from indolence, but perish from exhaustion, due to the absence of a luminous vision to guide their way. Vision acts as the compass of the mind, enabling us to distinguish core values from fleeting distractions. Meanwhile, action is the sturdy pair of legs that carries us to the shores our hearts long for. A compass cannot take you far if you choose to stand still. Yet, robust legs will only wander astray if they march through the dense fog of uncertainty. These two elements are never in opposition. Rather, they are like the wings of a free bird. Only when both flutter in harmonious rhythm can we soar into the vast, open skies. Life is a continuous sequence of choices, and every dawn presents a chance to redefine the journey. Grant yourself moments of silence to forge a vision vast enough to ignite passion, yet grounded enough to commence with the smallest of steps. Do not merely gaze at the mountain peak and dream. Begin walking the winding slope. Do not be busy just to prove your worth. Act for a purpose of genuine significance. When vision illuminates action, every deed gleams with value. And when action patiently nourishes the vision, distant dreams will gradually materialize within the waking world. Ultimately, what weaves a resplendent life is not the phantoms we conjure, nor the number of times we rush back and forth, but the rhythmic harmony between the future we envision and what we are willing to commit to in the present. I know for sure that what we dwell on is who we become. Oprah Winfrey. The world often believes that destiny and character are molded by the storms of circumstance or natural endowments. But in truth, the entity that most sharply defines the ego is the quiet current of thoughts drifting through the mind each day. Every notion sown into the soil of the soul, if watered by frequent attention, will take deep root and grow into a vast forest, casting its canopy over an entire lifetime. When the shadows of fear, doubt, and brokenness conquer the mind, your worldview will instinctively shrink into a gloomy palette. It makes your footsteps hesitant, closes you off to opportunities, and erects invisible walls, barring the path to the future. Conversely, if you bathe your soul in gratitude, compassion, and a thirst for growth, the brain will automatically activate a positive lens to seek out evidence for that belief. You will perceive opportunities hidden behind the jagged rapids of adversity and uncover invaluable lessons within the very stumbles that mimic failure. The power of thought does not manifest overnight. It is like a slender stream of water persistently carving through rock. A solitary drop cannot conjure a miracle, but over the years, that perseverance can sculpt majestic canyons. Recurring streams of thought possess a similar dominion. At first, they are but faint whispers in the subconscious. Gradually, they crystallize into beliefs, shaping our attitude towards life. Attitude will pave the way for action. Repeated actions carve out habits, and those silent habits will construct the character and destiny of every life. This does not mean we must force ourselves into a state of artificial positivity and flee from the dark corners of reality. A resilient soul is not a place untouched by the shadows of fear, but a sanctuary that knows how to filter the muddied waters, selecting the most worthy seeds to embrace and nurture. We may be powerless against the external tempests of circumstance, but we hold supreme sovereignty in deciding which thoughts are allowed to reside and rule within our minds. That is the most sacred internal power of every human being. Cherish and tend to your mental world like a devoted gardener caring for a precious orchard. Resolutely uproot the weeds of envy, pessimism, and cynicism before they can take deep root. Patiently sow and water the seeds of courage, kindness, and an immortal belief in yourself. For in the end, we are shaped not merely by what we exhibit to the outside world, but primarily by the very concepts we choose to cultivate within our minds each day. A radiant future always begins from a tiny spark of thought in the present. Remember that happiness is a way of travel, not a destination. Roy Goodman. We often harbor the illusion that simply grasping the trophy of fame, owning a comfortable home, amassing a dream fortune, or securing a certain social standing will effortlessly render our lives complete and fulfilled. Yet, once those halos are safely within our grasp, the initial euphoria often swiftly dissipates, giving way to new peaks that demand conquest. And so, we ceaselessly chase after undefined milestones, only to realize that happiness has never once stood still at the finish line, waiting for us. Happiness, inherently, is not a medal awaiting us at the road's end, but the sap of life pulsing through every step we take. It hides and reveals itself in the most simple, unadorned facets of the everyday. A serene morning watching the dew melt away, a profound conversation with a kindred spirit, a book opening up a new horizon, or the tranquil realization that today we are more forgiving and grounded than we were yesterday. When the mind fixates solely on a future destination, we inadvertently drift past countless miraculous moments unfolding silently right beside us. The very things that once thrilled us beyond measure will inevitably fade into the mundane over time. This syndrome easily drags humanity into a vortex of chasing phantoms. Making them forever feel a missing piece is required to smile in genuine contentment. They are like mountaineers exhausting themselves in a relentless pursuit of the summit, forgetting to marvel at the ancient forests, the murmuring streams, and the windswept skies along the way. Only when they set foot upon the pinnacle of glory do they suddenly realize the greatest joy did not reside in the moment of standing at the peak, but in the journey of forging willpower, cultivating steadfastness, and blossoming through every challenging stride. That does not imply we should abandon our aspirations or halt our upward ascent. On the contrary, dreams and goals act as the lighthouses that orient and propel us forward. But if we only grant ourselves permission to be happy once all objectives are met, we are transforming our lives into an endless marathon. Every success will merely inaugurate a new finish line, and if we do not know how to cherish the passage, we will forever be travelers who break their promise with their own happiness. Happiness is like shimmering rays of sunlight filtering through a canopy of leaves. It does not wait at the end of the road, but accompanies us on every leg of the journey, provided we open our hearts to receive it. Learn to treasure every tiny sliver of progress. Be grateful for the companions along the way, and show grace to your stumbles as an inevitable part of growing up. For the measure of a life is not dictated by the number of times we cross the finish line, but by how profoundly we have lived in every fraction of the voyage. When the heart knows how to dwell in the present, every step we take is steeped in joy, and that very journey will breathe life into the destination, rendering it more meaningful than ever before. In between goals is a thing called life that has to be lived and enjoyed. Sid Caesar. Goals and ambitions are the milestones that chart our course, infusing us with the vitality to break past boundaries and forge a brilliant future. However, there is a silent paradox that many of us are ensnared by. We become so engrossed in the destination that we forsake the beauty of the road supporting our very feet. We live under the conviction that only when the next milestone is reached will true life commence, and while patiently awaiting that day, we unwittingly reject the priceless gifts that the present quietly offers. Goals, ultimately, are but towering markers along the wayside, while life is the vast expanse, the cool, stretching atmosphere that fills the spaces between them. If we solely rush blindly from one finish line to the next, we are no different from a driver fixated on highway signs, entirely missing the majestic, rolling landscapes on either side. At the journey's end, what lingers most profoundly in the depths of our consciousness is not lifeless metals, but the memories of the years we lived completely, loved wholeheartedly, learned, and matured through every experience. We constantly defer happiness with vague promises. When my finances are stable, I will rest. When I attain that position, I will make time for my family. When this project concludes, I will slow down. But then, new objectives emerge, trailing fresh anxieties and pressures in their wake. Life is thus shredded into a myriad of laters, while the precious present quietly slips away without a single backward glance. We forget a glaring truth. Life does not reside in the future tense, but resonates in every heartbeat of today. In reality, the cinematic reels that warm our hearts in our twilight years are rarely the growth charts or soulless figures sitting in a bank account. They are, more often than not, incredibly rustic moments. A cozy family dinner, a peaceful afternoon watching the rain fall from the porch, an earnest conversation, or the serene relief following a day of hard, purposeful labor. Such moments are so diminutive, they are easily forgotten, yet they are the very fabric that weaves the wealth of a soul. Success expands the borders of a lifetime, but it is these unpretentious experiences that cultivate depth within our spirits. Continue to harbor grand ambitions, but do not turn them into the sole condition, allowing yourself to smile. Learn to savor the process of acquiring knowledge, cherish the minute efforts, and offer your undivided presence to those you love. Because every goal will eventually recede into the past, but how you lived and felt in the quiet spaces between those goals will forever be the most beautiful melody in the novel of your life. The more I want to get something done, the less I call it work. Richard Bach. There lies an invisible yet profound boundary between what we have to do and what we want to do. On the surface, both states demand an equivalent toll of time, effort, and perseverance. Yet, in the depths of our subconscious, they deliver two wildly opposing experiences. One heavily burdens our shoulders with exhaustion, pressure, and the longing for time to pass swiftly. The other awakens a surging wellspring of inner energy, making us eager to immerse ourselves for hours in a state of liberated passion. When a task is draped in the heavy cloak of obligation, the brain automatically triggers a mechanism of resistance, leading to procrastination and fatigue. Conversely, when we perceive that very action as a chance to unleash our potential, to create and touch our dreams, that exact same work becomes remarkably light and ethereal. The nature of the work remains unchanged. The only variable that shifts is the mindset of the doer. Observe a child passionately assembling the pieces of a model, or an artist absorbed at their easel as the night descends. Onlookers might pity their toil, but they themselves are soaring in their own private universe where time seems to stand still. They are not driven by the ticking of the clock, but are guided by the flame of passion from the very core of their souls. That state is akin to a river flowing along its natural course. The water moves unceasingly toward the great sea, yet carries no sense of forced labor or hardship. When action is illuminated by purpose, no effort is wasted, and the sensation of being burdened vanishes completely. This does not imply that life is purely composed of sweet things, or that we only need to do what we please. Responsibilities and duties are unavoidable realities. However, what distinguishes great souls is the ability to uncover noble meaning in the most ordinary of tasks. A mason is not simply stacking dry bricks, but is constructing a sanctuary that shelters families. A teacher is not merely imparting knowledge from a podium, but is sowing the seeds of hope for generations to come. When the profound significance of our labor becomes vividly apparent, work ceases to be mere survival. It transforms into a vehicle to actualize the higher values within ourselves. Those who attain extraordinary greatness rarely complain of hardship, not because they sacrifice any less, but because they unearth joy in every falling drop of sweat. They do not count the passing hours, but treasure the values taking shape under their own hands. It is this wondrous intersection between willpower and love that alchemizes pressure into motivation, turning self-discipline into a natural rhythm of life. If one day you feel utterly drained and fragmented, do not rush to doubt your own capabilities. Slow down for a beat and ask yourself, are you viewing your work as a burden to bear or as a stepping stone to growth? When the heart truly comprehends the value of the path it treads, every step, no matter how rugged, sheds its weariness. For after all, the worth of a journey is determined not only by the nature of the labor, but by how our minds choose to name and embrace it. When passion meets purpose, work is no longer a draining obligation, but becomes the triumphant anthem of the very best version of ourselves. We see things not as they are, but as we are. H.M. Tomlinson. We constantly cling to the belief that we are observing all things through an entirely objective lens, that what our eyes see and our ears hear is absolute truth. In reality, every individual observes life through a highly distinctive prism, polished by personal experiences, beliefs, emotions, and even the hidden corners of one's character. The world around us is like a colossal mirror. What reflects there is not merely the myriad of living things, but the truest portrait of the inner world within each person. Imagine two silhouettes standing together beneath an afternoon downpour. One smiles softly, welcoming the refreshing chill, listening to the rustling symphony of the leaves, and deeply inhaling the pungent scent of earth after days of drought. The other frowns in dismay at the flooded streets, the soiled garments, and the interrupted appointments. The nature of the rain remains unchanged, yet the experiences of each soul diverge into entirely separate realms. This disparity does not stem from the falling raindrops, but from the echoes reverberating within before the event even speaks. One who carries the scars of betrayal will readily view the world with a skeptical gaze, remaining guarded against even the most sincere gestures of kindness. In contrast, someone warmed in the cradle of love will effortlessly spot goodwill and warmth in those around them. What is telling is that both implicitly believe in the authenticity of their worldview, but in essence, they are only admiring versions of life dyed in the hues of their personal memories. Because of this, everyday arguments do not stem from distinguishing right from wrong, but from the fact that each person is standing behind a different window to observe the exact same sky. This also explains why the same stumbling block can split two destinies into entirely different paths. One chooses to surrender, viewing it as undeniable proof of their own incompetence. Another receives that wound as a costly lesson to forge greater maturity. Stumbles and falls do not inherently carry a predefined color. It is the interpretive stroke of the mind that sketches the emotions, actions, and future of each individual. Life is like an open book, and the mind is the commentator writing the footnotes for every single page. If the commentary is steeped only in pessimism and fear, the narrative becomes desolate. But if illuminated by profound empathy and hope, that page opens up entirely new horizons. When we expand the capacity of our hearts to learn, to listen deeply, and to bravely confront ourselves, the lens through which we view life shifts accordingly. A peaceful soul will uncover opportunities hidden within trials. A grateful heart will recognize miraculous beauty in the most ordinary things. A mature individual will not hasten to judge by mere outward appearances, for they understand that what they see might just be a ripple on the surface of a vast ocean. Before releasing a sigh of resentment that the world is too harsh or life is entirely unfair, carve out a quiet moment to look inward and examine your mind. Perhaps what demands change is not the objective circumstance, but the way you are choosing to observe it. When the inner lens becomes crystal clear, the external world naturally opens up, expansive and forgiving. Ultimately, the value of life is determined not only by what happens to us, but by who we become when we stand face to face with those upheavals. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little extra. Jimmy Johnson. We often marvel at the shimmering aura of those standing at the pinnacle of glory, yet rarely do we empathize with the thousands of hours of silent training in the shadows, the unspoken, bitter failures, and the moments they chose to try just one more time when everyone around them was content to quit. That extraordinary quality sometimes springs from the most trivial of acts, persisting to turn one more page before closing your eyes, training for 10 more minutes on the field, refining one more stroke in a design blueprint. making one more call to learn, or bravely standing back up one more time after a fall. The magic of life lies in the fact that these microscopic efforts, when accumulated steadily each day, will forge an immense chasm over time. A solitary drop of water cannot wear away a millennial boulder in a single day, but millions of drops persisting in succession will carve out a majestic canyon. Success operates in that very same silent and enduring manner. The majority of us possess a tendency to stop the moment we feel we have reached the threshold of enough. The human brain is inherently programmed to conserve energy and seek comfort. It will ceaselessly whisper sweet seductions. This is far enough. We can just finish it tomorrow. Or, others have only done this much anyway. It is these very compromising thoughts that unwittingly draw the boundary, dividing mediocrity from excellence. The ordinary person easily capitulates to temporary comfort. The extraordinary person is not defined by a tireless, invincible body, but by an ironclad will, knowing how to conquer the siren call of ease to take just one more step. Look at two athletes training with the exact same grueling intensity. When the final whistle blows, one packs up their gear and heads home. The other decides to stay an extra 15 minutes to polish a lingering weakness. That brief fraction of time might seem to offer no immediate distinction. But after a year, 5 years, and then 10 years, it is those silent minutes of a little extra that crystallize into the miraculous distance the world commonly refers to as talent. In truth, what we call innate genius is merely the result of countless tiny choices, repeated with an astonishing steadfastness. The most profound meaning of a little extra effort does not solely lie in the outcomes achieved, but in the internal alchemy taking place within you. Every time you conquer laziness, you are laying another brick in the fortress of discipline. Every time you refuse to yield to hardship, you are forging an unshakable metal. Every time you patiently learn something new, you are stretching the boundaries of your own limitations. These noble traits cannot be bartered with wealth, nor begged from fortune. They are distilled from small, yet consistent decisions made every single day. The extraordinary is never the offspring of a miraculous leap, but a continuous chain of ordinary actions. Reading one more line, practicing one more breath, contemplating for one more minute, reaching out to help one more person, and persisting for one more day when everything appears to have hit a dead end. Life is not transformed by rare, heroic moments, but is shaped by an infinite array of small actions executed with a relentless spirit of striving. And it is that little extra which, through the passage of years, will carry you across the borders of an ordinary existence to touch true greatness. I am an optimist. It does not seem too much use being anything else. Winston Churchill. Amidst the ever-shifting currents of life, with countless variables beyond our control, our attitude remains the sole fortress entirely within our sovereign command. Human life is never as placid as a tranquil lake. There are days of radiant sunshine, but also days inundated with violent storms. We cannot command the rain to stop falling, nor can we force humanity to treat us with unwavering sincerity. The only thing holding the power of life and death in our hands is the attitude with which we respond to those events. The pessimist sees the storm and immediately envisions ruin and desolation. The optimist confronts that same churning sky, but their eyes are fixed upon the warm rays of sunlight breaking behind the gray clouds. Both breathe the exact same air and live under the same sky, yet their experiences of life are two drastically different worlds. If you nurture the belief that life is nothing but deceit and injustice, your mind will automatically attract and record failures, criticisms, and miseries. Conversely, when you actively choose the lens of optimism, your brain begins to unlock, identifying opportunities, supportive hands, and pathways of escape that you might have previously overlooked. Optimism does not alter factual data, but it redefines how you approach reality, thereby pivoting the trajectory of your ensuing actions. Genuine optimism is a far cry from passive delusion. It is the courage to resolutely sow seeds, even though the previous harvest was entirely wiped out by disaster. It is the ironclad belief that allows you to stand back up after bitter falls, refusing to let failure define your life. It is the capacity to sift through adversity for precious lessons and to witness new doors of opportunity creaking open just as old ones slam shut. The optimist is not immune to suffering, but rather someone who denies pain the right to rule their soul. They understand that every trial they endure is invaluable material to sculpt a more resilient version of themselves. Imagine two individuals rowing through a treacherous stretch of river, rife with rapids and gales. Both must face the exact same fierce headwinds. One merely curses the current, drops the oars, and lets the boat drift to the whims of fate. The other accepts the reality that they cannot change the wind's direction, yet steadfastly adjusts the sails and holds a firm grip on the helm to cut through the waves. After a long voyage, what creates the divergence in their destinies is not the river, but the mindset of the one at the helm. We choose optimism not because the road ahead is always strewn with roses, but because it is the wellspring of strength that empowers us to carry on. A pessimistic attitude has never once unraveled the knots of circumstance, whereas optimism ignites the fire of creative action. When you believe that hope remains, you will continue to learn, continue to engage, and continue to step forward. It is that very belief that will unveil pathways that despair could never see. Let optimism become a conscious decision, a lifestyle endorsed by wisdom rather than just a fleeting emotion. Do not wait for circumstances to be flawless before breaking into a smile. Smile to summon the strength to face those very circumstances. Human life holds days of sun and days of storm, but the one who keeps the warming fire alive within their soul will never be defeated by the freezing dark. The choice of optimism, therefore, is always the most meaningful gift of freedom we can bestow upon ourselves. Don't just go through life, grow through life. Eric Butterworth. Time quietly bestows age upon everyone, but not everyone walks alongside time to evolve their soul. Some lives simply drift by in monotony, where every day is merely a bland replica of outdated cognitive patterns, old fears, and stale habits. They let life flow over them like a stream rushing over a senseless stone, leaving not the slightest mark of transformation behind. In contrast, there are those who treat every experience as a cherished chapter, every hardship as a strict teacher, and every stumble as an opportunity to more profoundly understand their own self. The value of a human lifespan is not measured by the length of its years, but by the depth of maturity attained after the turbulent tides of life. Maturity is not a natural gift intrinsically tethered to age. Age is merely the accumulation of lifeless digits on a calendar, while true maturity is the sweet fruit of a process of self-reflection, learning, and courageous self-transformation. Faced with the exact same tempest, one person might plunge forever into resentment, allowing the ghosts of the past to chain their present. The other chooses to calmly accept it, extracting hard-earned lessons and continuing forward with a wiser, more anchored stance. A crisis holds no power to dictate your growth. How you confront and transmute it is what shapes your true nature. A great many of us are unconsciously repeating the same mental ruts, instinctual reactions, and old mistakes from one year to the next. They falsely believe they are rich in experience, when in truth, they are simply repeating a single, monotonous year many times over. True maturity only commences when we summon the courage to pose earnest, introspective questions. How can I do this better? What is this failure trying to teach me? Is the person I am today genuinely an improvement over who I was yesterday? Those questions are the master keys unlocking the doors to authentic transformation. Life is like a violently churning ocean current. If you choose to stand still and endure the beating, the waters will sweep you away, casting you toward the end of your journey in total ambiguity regarding the meaning of your existence. But if you hold a steady oar, observing and learning from every turn, every jagged rock, and every ferocious wave, you will not only reach your destination, but emerge as a valiant, profound, and resilient mariner. The very trials we once sought to evade are the crucible that forges our patience. The very agonizing falls are what teach us the lesson of humility. And it is the seemingly heart-wrenching losses that instruct us to cherish and hold dear what is currently within our grasp. Maturity is when you still retain your kindness after being wounded time and again. Hold fast to your faith after profound shattering, and preserve your inner peace amidst life's raging storms. 1,000-year-old ancient tree does not stand firm beneath the heavens because it has never encountered a storm, but because its roots have plunged deep into the earth through countless tempestuous seasons, allowing it to reach high and embrace the sun. Humans are no different. Inner strength does not lie in dodging every piece of adversity, but in the capacity to turn that adversity into fertile soil for monumental growth. Let every passing day leave behind a meaningful lesson. Let every experience crystallize into a vital value, and let every challenge contribute to carving a more perfected version of yourself. Life does not interrogate you on how long you have existed, but will ask what you have learned, how deeply you have loved, and how you have transformed yourself throughout that voyage. When you choose to live with an ethos of relentless self-improvement, you will realize that the most sacred thing is not reaching the end of a lifetime, but growing up alongside that very life. Great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds. Albert Einstein. Ideas that transcend the boundaries of conventional wisdom frequently provoke unease and a wave of resistance from minds unready to embrace change. When a groundbreaking concept emerges, the masses tend to judge it not by the intrinsic merit of the idea itself, but out of fear of overturning the archaic beliefs that are already deeply entrenched. Violent opposition sometimes does not prove that an idea is fallacious, but simply demonstrates that it is forcing others to confront and question the very mindset they have harbored for so long. And dismantling an age-old prejudice is always a far more grueling ordeal than dismissing something entirely new. It is like someone stepping into a pitch-black room with a lit lantern. To those hopelessly searching for a way out, that light is the embodiment of guiding hope. But to those who have grown accustomed to dwelling in gloomy darkness, the glare becomes blinding and offensive. The fault never lay with the lantern itself, but with the eyes that require time to adjust to the brilliance. grand ideological systems suffer a similar fate. They are rarely greeted with roaring applause at their dawn. Many magnificent discoveries were once branded as lunacy, fantastical, or aberrant. Yet, through the currents of history, they became the launching pads for humanity's monumental leaps forward. However, mass resistance is not an absolute guarantee of a profound truth. An idea holds true value only when illuminated by authentic knowledge, humanistic ethics, and the capacity to forge goodness for the world. What is admirable in great souls is not a haughty disdain for humanity, but a tranquil steadfastness in the face of baseless waves of criticism. They are always willing to open their hearts to sincere feedback, to refine themselves, yet they absolutely refuse to let narrow-minded prejudice shake the compass of the path they have chosen. Those who possess a vision ahead of their time often accept living with loneliness during a certain phase of their journey. They possess a deep understanding that all innovation demands time to be felt and assimilated. Rather than expending precious energy on debates to prove themselves to the world, they opt to silently elevate their competence, cultivate their character, and allow the results to speak for themselves. A seedling does not waste its energy arguing about the day it will bear fruit. It simply plunges its roots silently into the warm earth, soaking up every drop of nourishment, so that when spring knocks on the door, its vibrant blossoms will serve as the most flawless response to all doubt. If the path you walk brings humanitarian value, is guided by kindness, and is built upon a spirit of endless learning, do not hasten to surrender merely because of the dissonant voices surrounding you. Remember that every great stride in human history once began as a solitary idea that the majority viewed with skepticism. Simultaneously, always maintain a profound posture of humility. Do not be quick to label others with your own prejudices just because they have not yet agreed with you. A truly magnificent soul possesses not only the bravery to think differently and walk a different path, but also harbors a heart expansive enough to respect differences, favoring peaceful dialogue over disdain, and utilizing the weight of actual deeds to persuade, rather than fighting over meaningless words. Ultimately, what makes a person truly great does not lie in the number of opponents they have, but in their capacity to persistently pursue truth with lucid wisdom, encompassing compassion, and an ironclad endurance against every storm of adversity.